when I look back at my entire life, since I was a little girl, I've always been interested and drawn to and sort of wired to have the same instincts that I have now, right? And so when we talk about what your purpose is, what your passion is, when you look back to what you did as a kid, that's going to be your first clue, right? Because who we are is who we've always been.
NEZNATION Live. This is a show where we interview creative, interesting people doing groundbreaking things in their respective fields, sharing their story with us here on NEZNATION Live. I'm your host, Professor Nez. And boy, ladies and gentlemen, I am just so pumped to introduce to you who I have with us today. Without further ado, let me just go ahead and introduce to you. This is Carolyn Maul, and she is somebody who I've been keeping an eye on social media, and she has been creating this wonderful presence, creating lives that kick ass, creating people's lives that just kick ass. And I already effed up the intro. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our fabulous guest. Everybody, welcome. Come on in. I'm monitoring the comments. I want to let you know just really quickly, the emphasis is on share. This is not your ordinary, this is not a podcast where you cannot interact with the host and you just listen and you're on your treadmill. I am monitoring all the comments. So if you have any questions for Carolyn or I, we are so happy to answer them. So please, by all means, do that. Nez Nation, I am so happy to let you know who we have with us. Without further ado, I've already fumbled and mumbled enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Nez Nation, welcome Carolyn Maul. Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
Hello, Professor Nez. I am fabulous. It's so good nice to be here with you.
Yeah, so nice to have you with us. Do me a favor, Carolyn, since I completely buckled that intro, why don't you go ahead and tell our Nez Nation audience a little bit about you, a little bit about your story and background. I'm going to go ahead and share this out because I can't share it out before we go live. So I'm going to go ahead and share this out and fix my hair. and then we'll get right into it. How does that sound?
Sure.
Okay, Nez Nation, here is Carolyn Maul. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So again, my name is Carolyn, and essentially, I've been in the health, wellness, personal development sphere for over a decade professionally. And essentially what it is that I do is I help people create totally kick-ass lives.
Yes.
I am a
That's
big
much better.
I'm a big believer in getting exactly what it is that you want out of your life. And so I work with clients, I work with groups of people, I speak, I write. And the premise around everything is that, you know, life is really too short to settle. And so whether it's with your body, whether it's with your career, whether it's in your relationships, I want to help you, empower you, support you 100% in creating a totally kick-ass life.
That is awesome. That is great. And so let me ask you, and again, Nez Nation, so pleased to have Carolyn with us, because one thing that I got to say, the first thing that captured my attention was your message and then your delivery, because being a writing and communication professor, you know, my kind of antenna is very sharp, you know, when it comes to that. And I always felt you had a very warm, inviting, graceful kind of delivery and tone and pitch and volume, which I think is just so awesome to have in this type of medium. But your message really struck home, because your message is like, you know, creating kick-ass lives. You also seem to convey this message of really truly finding out what your purpose is, you know, really embracing that purpose and creating a life of meaning and impact. Can I ask you, Carolyn, how did you get involved in that? Because it's so interesting. What brought you into this kind of arena of sort of wellness and creating these beautiful lives and kick-ass lives for people? How did you get into that?
Well, you know, when I look back at my entire life, since I was a little girl, I've always been interested and drawn to and sort of wired to have the same instincts that I have now, right? And so when we talk about what your purpose is, what your passion is, when you look back to what you did as a kid, that's going to be your first clue, right? Because who we are is who we've always been. but we tend to make exceptions as we get older, and we are told, oh, this is better and you should do that and you should do that. And but ever since I was little, you know, I've been creating art. I've been you can see I have a lot of energy, right? So I've always been a bit of an athlete, an artist, an intellect, you know, like all of those kind of archetypal principles are who I am, right? And so now, after all of these years of doing my own personal growth work, I can, you know, clearly say that because it's true. But when I was, when I was pregnant with my son, with my first kid, I started to learn everything about nutrition and everything about the body, right? Because I had decided that I was going to have a home birth. And I actually read Ina May Gaskin's book called Spiritual Midwifery. And, you know, I was in college, I was going to the U of A, and, you know, I was there on scholarships. Like I've always been, school has been easy for me. It's very easy for me to be an academic type person. So I read this book and I thought to myself, if those dirty hippies down there on the farm can have babies with no cars and no hospitals around, certainly I can too. Right? And so my son was born at home. And I was so inspired by that experience. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to help everybody have these empowering, totally kick-ass birth experiences, right? So I realized right away that being a midwife is something that I couldn't do because that's a 24/7 job.
Who wants that? No, not for me.
You have a baby, that's a 24/7 enough job.
Oh my God, I've got two. Carolyn, I've got two and they drive me nuts.
So there's just not a lot of time, not a lot of extra time.
If it wasn't for my wife, I'd seriously jump off a bridge. I mean, she's a rock.
It takes a family. It takes a unit, no matter what it looks like, you know. I
just get in the way. I mean, I might as well just stay out of the way. No, I'm kidding. No, I try. I really try to be useful. I feel like I'm useless half the time. They always want mommy. You know, they're always like, mommy. They're like, daddy, get away from me. They're kind of young. So they're like 4 and 5, right? So they're very young. So they're kind of in that. You have
to get him engaged in something.
I have to get him engaged. Yes. Hello, Gord. Gord's with us. He says, hi, Professor Nez and Carolyn. Hello, Gord. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. So I love what you said there. You know, you're talking about how, you know, the family unit and I didn't mean to interject. I just thought it was so interesting talking about having kids. And how many kids do you have, by the way, Carolyn? You have a couple, right?
I have 2 also. And so then by the time my daughter was born, again, another home birth, I realized that I wasn't so great at just sitting at home. So by that time, I ran the city soccer program with 470 kids in it. I had my art in a gallery. I was training for triathlons, and I got a master's degree in nutrition.
Wow. So talk about an entrepreneurial lifestyle. You were hustling like crazy.
But it was fun, right? And so then I opened a fitness studio, and so my kids could be with me. And yeah, right. Because that's what I love, and that way I could host.
You made that sound like such a and then I just opened up a fitness studio. Like I wish I could do that. That's great the way you said that.
What it was, right? Yes. This is a funny story. I was in Leadville, Colorado. I will always remember this. Leadville, Colorado. There was a mountain bike race that I was going to in Leadville, and we were walking around like the downtown of Leadville, which I don't know if you've been there, but it's this old mining town. It's like just like a weird antique place, and I was walking down the road, and there was this little fitness studio, and I stood there, and I looked in the door, and it was spinning. It was personal training. They had a little juice bar in there, some yoga, and I went, oh my God, if this can happen in Leadville, Colorado, this could happen in Flagstaff. I didn't even go in. I took the brochure from off the door, and I turned around and I went directly home, did not pass go, did not like $200. And I went to the Center for Small Business Development, and I said, I want to open this studio, and here is a rough business model. So I opened in January.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Carolyn, it seems like the takeaway from what you just talked about was be receptive, be open, pay attention, and don't overthink it. Just do it. Am I wrong?
When you have an intuitive moment like that,
that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah. So when I allow myself to be guided by intuitive moments, because I really think that that's how you create your kick-ass life, is to be able to go from one thing to the next thing, knowing that it is your next thing. It doesn't have to look great to anybody else. You know what I mean?
I love it.
But you know what you want to do. You just have to
My students, if you're watching right now, I advertised making sure that my students will come on, and we're getting a lot of viewers right now. But, if you're listening to this, things that I try to purport in my class and things that I try to talk about, listen to what Carolyn's saying, this trust factor, this ability to sort of kind of understand and be aware of what's happening inside you, outside you, around you, and just take action. There's no such thing as perfection. We were talking about this today, Carolyn. And I think that a lot of people, it sounds like a bumper sticker. And it's so interesting because when you say this intuitive feeling, and I don't know if you get these looks too, because I try to talk about that sort of deep core sort of unfolding, of who you really are and discovering this true essence, the essence, not the sort of facade or the superfluous things. But I love what you said there, like without sounding hippy dippy or without sounding bumper stickery, how do you convey that to your clients and to people that you help and your audience? How do you convey that where it doesn't come off? Because I know you've probably gotten this, right? Like I know you've probably gotten these same sort of, because we talked about this NEZNATION before we went live, is that the whole kind of life coach or this coach or expert this or wellness this and all that, it can get a little bit muddled, to put it mildly, right? Mm-hmm. How do you, because I'm so curious, because the way that you come off on camera and the way that you're coming off right now, it just seems so genuine. It does not seem like a put on or a facade at all. No. How do you convey that? You're like, it is a put on. What are you talking about, Professor Nez? No, I'm kidding.
Wow, I've really got you fooled.
You really got me fooled. Maybe, I tell my students all the time, I'm easily duped. So I could be just being duped. I don't know. No. Yeah.
So that's a great question, right? Because the way that you do it is just by actually offering my own examples from my life, right?
I love it.
So there's been so many times, like when I was in 8th grade, I knew that I was going to move to Tucson. I wanted to go to school in Tucson, Arizona. I was going to go to the U of A. I knew that in 8th grade. Everyone was like, well, that's
really?
Weird. Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And sure,
why Tucson? Just curiously, why Tucson?
Honey, I don't know, because I felt like I needed to
You just trusted it. You trusted it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it was the feeling you got. Yeah.
I grew up in Ohio. I never felt at home in Ohio.
I love that.
It's dark. It's cold. The ceilings are low. There's snow everywhere. But
oh my God, I lived in Indiana. Where in Ohio were you?
Yeah, I grew up in Cleveland.
Oh, you grew up in Cleveland. Oh my God. I spent pretty much the first 10, 12 years of my life in Evansville, Indiana. So that's funny. I had Clayton Carroll on recently. He's a digital marketer, and he was from oh shit, now I forget. I think it was Michigan. But that Midwest, maybe that's why I felt like, God, I really like the stuff she does on social media. It's really proactive. It's really impactful. Nice. Maybe it's that Midwest thing. Maybe that's what it is.
It totally is.
Yeah. So you just knew Tucson. You just felt like you don't question it. Is that what you're kind of telling me, Carolyn?
Well, everyone else questioned it. My guidance counselors were like, oh no, what are you talking about? You need to go to this Ivy League here. You need to go there. You need to whatever. And I was like, and what happened was, so when I graduated high school, I was 17. I was pretty young. And
So was I. I was 17 when I graduated. Holy macadamia nut. Isn't this amazing?
We
have so much in common. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I got accepted to Case Western Reserve, which is a great university if you want to be a nurse or an engineer, but I wanted to be an artist. And so I was co-captain of the women's crew team at Case, which was like my most favorite part of college then. But I just kind of was goofing around a little bit. Like I was in Cleveland still. I didn't want to be there. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was in a relationship and he wasn't going to leave and blah, blah, blah. So I hatched a plan. And I clandestinely submitted an application to the Student Conservation Association because I was like, dude, I'm 18. I'm still in Cleveland. I have no money. I have really great grades. I got a good head on my shoulders, but how am I getting out of here, right? So I put in an application and I got accepted to work in national parks. And
oh, wow, you're kidding me.
Was Saguaro National Park in Tucson, Arizona. So of course I said yes. And within a few weeks, I was on a plane flying to Tucson for the summer to work for Saguaro National Park on a backcountry fire crew. And this is how I learned how to cook for so many people.
Wow.
Because I worked up at 8,000 feet, 10 days on, 4 days off on this backcountry fire crew. And every day, like one person would take camp duty. So you had to like man the radio and clean and cook for the crew when they came back at night. So that's how, and there were no roads. So we hiked 9 miles up to the top of the mountain. Everything else came up on mule train. And then seriously, for real,
Wow.
and Wild Bill and his mules.
Yeah.
And so, I made everything. I learned how to make pasta from scratch, pies, bread, like everything. So it was an amazing experience, and it got me to Tucson. It got me out because I knew I had to go. And so if you're resourceful enough, you can figure out an answer to anything. You're never going to know exactly how it's going to happen or what exactly it's going to look like. But if you know what it is that is a kick-ass option for you, if you know what you want, it will come to you, but you have to be open to receive it in whatever kind of way, shape, or form it comes to you. And that's the trick for your students, really, is to be able to cast a vision
Yeah.
for their lives without having to know how, like, what the Uber is going to look like on the way there. Do you know what I mean?
Right, right. Yeah, I love the way you said that. Listen to this, Nez Nation. Carolyn is just really, really providing a lot of value here. You don't necessarily have to know what's going to come next. You don't necessarily have to know what the Uber driver looks like. You don't have to necessarily know even 10 steps, 11 steps. I used to hate that question when they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I didn't see myself here 5 years ago. So and now a lot of people, and I think my students included, and Gord has an amazing question, Carolyn. I can't wait to get to it. But I think a lot of people feel that's just too, wish-washy. That's too, unstrategic or what have you. And I need a plan, and I need to analyze. I need to make sure I know. But it's so funny. Like, even when you plan things out, it always seems like there's a twist, there's a turn, there's a bump, there's a road, there's a, something happens where not everything goes according. I don't know about you, Carolyn, but hardly anything I've ever done goes according to plan, really. And it seems to have worked out. It's interesting. As soon as I let go of the need to control everything, let go of the need to control everything. You can control certain things, but let go of the need to control everything. It seems like things, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like things fell into place quite nicely. Carolyn, thank you so much. This is awesome so far. I hope you guys are loving this on Facebook. Gord has an excellent question for you, and I can't wait to ask you. Gord says, you talk about intuitiveness. What about embracing the unknown? This probably relates to what we're talking about. I'm thinking, he goes on, I'm thinking that there is a correlation here. Mm-hmm. Often people get hung up on not being open to receive. Consequently, they reject opportunity and miss out. So what do you think about intuitiveness in relation to embracing the unknown? I mean, I think we just kind of talked about that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, Carolyn, on even elaborating further.
So I think that what Gord is saying is the whole embracing the unknown bit is otherwise known as acting in spite of fear. Because what holds people back is the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
It is very hard to embrace the future, which you cannot predict, you cannot see, you cannot control external forces. And so in order to have the internal fortitude to be able to take steps in the direction of your dream, not knowing, is called embracing the unknown, right? Like acting in spite of fear.
Yes.
So, a lot of people have a really hard time with that because there's a lot to be afraid of. Like, let's face it, there's a lot of variables. And
especially if you pay attention to the media.
Well,
can I tell you something, Carolyn? Can I tell you something really quickly? My wife kind of laughed at me, but Tim, thank you for joining, by the way. Tim Pass, thank you for sharing the video, Tim. Cleveland, he says #CLE. Yeah. Thank you, Tim. So every single morning I get up about 5:30, 6. I have a lot of classes early in the morning because I like to save afternoons for like activities and stuff. And then I do my online stuff at night. I used to watch the news with coffee every single morning. And it's not really news, is it? It's bad news. It's depressing news. Because why?
Here's what I think that when people do that, here's what I think happens.
Yeah.
The morning is a very special time. And so I have all my clients do journaling work and meditation work. And even if it's 5 minutes,
love it.
You have to start programming things early in the day, right? Your mindset. So when you get up and you have your cup of coffee and you're immediately programming to what's on the news, you're training your brain to look for those instances in the world around you. And so oftentimes people keep expecting more bad to happen. They expect to be robbed. They expect for the bus to crash. They expect, the worst case scenario, because you're subconsciously training your brain to see those things. It's called your reticular activating system, the RAS, beautiful. Right? And so
beautiful.
Once you change the filter, you can start picking up those things where I'm talking about, like using your intuition and saying, oh, that opportunity could actually benefit me to get here, instead of looking at it the other way, like, oh my God, that's so scary. Like that might hurt me, or that might cause, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. No.
When you train what your brain is looking for in the beginning of the day, that's what your wife was saying. She's probably like, knock that shit off. I don't want to be looking for that all day like that. What a horrible way to start the day.
Yeah, no, I was actually, yeah, it was interesting. And thank you, Tim. Tim says, no problem. I grew up there and also moved. And Gord has another great question. Gord, I'm so glad you're with us, asking some beautifully intellectual, stimulating questions. The thing that I was going to say, Carolyn, is that I actually stopped watching the news. So I used to watch the news pretty much every morning, just because mostly because I wanted to know the weather and the traffic, because I have kind of like a long commute. It's like a 45-minute, 35-minute commute every morning. And so I kind of, and I get really like Southern California, you live in Ventura. So, like California freeways are literally, you are like, you're bracing death. You're basically, challenging death every time you get in the car, because the California freeways are just insanity. But it was interesting. I stopped doing that. And, I like to set aside my time to do my thing and go internal and go inside. Mm-hmm. My favorite thing to do is really, as far as that goes, is just go kind of by myself to usually nature, if it's the beach, a park or something, and just breathe, literally just breathe. It's not even necessarily meditation or what people would call meditation, but just, having a little kind of getaway with myself. Mm-hmm. And I stopped watching the news. I stopped watching everything that was going on. And honestly, Carolyn, I've never felt better. Literally, I've never,
goes way down.
Oh my God, I've literally never felt better. I listen to podcasts now. I listen to really informative things, educational things. I love to constantly learn. I'm not one of these professors that's like, I know everything. I love to learn and constantly be open and receptive. It's made such a hell of a difference. And I think what you're talking about, if it relates to what you're talking about, I love what you say, is your environment, right, has impact. What you're focusing on has impact. Tony Robbins talks about how the first minute, 60 seconds of your day, the first 5 minutes of your day are really the most important. What are you doing? What are you thinking? What activity are you engaging in? What mental activity are you engaging in? Because it sets the tone for the rest of the day. And I think that's so interesting. Gord has a question. How do you develop? Hey, Robert, how are you? Good to see you. How do you develop a trusting for your gut intuition and not question it so much? Oh yeah, baby. That's a great question. Because anyway, I have so much to say about that, but I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm so self-conscious now, Carolyn. You made me so self-conscious about the damn painting. I keep doing one of these.
Oh, so funny. What, is your chair glued to the floor? You could scoot it.
I know, but it's no, it's the whole, you can't see there's so much going on here. This is hey, this is a professional set. Hello. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But no, I think that's a great question. How do you develop a trusting for your intuition / gut and not question it so much? That's an interesting question. Do you have anything for that, Carolyn?
Okay. So there's so many great methods to getting past that. So if I can, I'll mention two, because there's usually two sets of people out there. Okay. So the first one is when you have that hunch, like when you have that intuitive feeling and you start to question it, most of the questions are usually probably fear-based or worst case scenario based, because otherwise you would just do it, right? So when you're thinking of something that is negative, you have to stop and you ask yourself, is that true?
Yeah.
Is that true? And typically it's not true. Typically, whatever you've conjured up in your mind is an ego story, or it's something that you heard somewhere else, or it's not true. It doesn't exist. So the second question you ask yourself is, how do I know that it's true? Like, can you prove it to me? And typically the line of questioning ends there. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of one way, one path that I teach people to go down. There's a couple other questions past that, but we'll keep it a little bit brief here today. So ask yourself, really, is it true? Because typically it's just an ego story. It's just a story that you're making up. There could be another story, which leads me to the other if you want something black or white, you can think of this, right? Every single thing that you think, do, say, everything that is coming from you is based on only one of two things. It's either based on fear or love. And so this is basic A Course in Miracles action right here. But if you believe that any single thing in your surroundings, whatever you are interacting with, that coffee cup that you just picked up, the painting behind you, this pen that I'm holding.
It's not just any coffee cup.
It's the NEZNATION cup, and which is why I'm saying this, because every single thing only has the meaning to which you give it.
Yes. So
when you are thinking about things and what you want to do, and the meaning that things have is up to you. And how you deal with them is either going to come from a place of fear or a place of love / creativity, excitement, joy, coordination, community, right? All of those things. So there's either the fear-based is like, there's too much competition. What if this happens? You're angry, you're frustrated, you're depressed, you're making excuses, you're afraid of losing everything. I'm a big fan of actually losing everything and starting over. Lots of lessons
die while you're alive, sort of die while you're alive. I love that kind of concept.
My gosh. I always joke around with people that I have experienced probably everyone's worst nightmare by the time I was 35. And thank God, right?
Yeah.
Everything that you could possibly imagine.
Everything that you could imagine, losing everything, right?
It's been there, done that.
That's what I've noticed. And Gord has another amazing question. I want to get to that, Gord. I wanted to talk to you about, and by the way, just beautiful stuff. Really talking about self-investigation, asking if this is true and why is it true? What makes it absolutely true? Really nothing about this. And this is why I wanted Carolyn on the show. And I'm so happy to have her. None of this stuff is woo-woo. None of this stuff is like, light some incense and do some dancing, even not that there's anything wrong with that. But I mean, it's like, this is very practical stuff. It's very down to earth. It's very rooted in really age-old traditions, actually, really rooted in ancestral kind of thinking and even writings and teachings that have really passed through the ages. I love what you're saying. But, one of the things that I love is that you're taking your message and you're amplifying it, aren't you? I hear you and I see you, and I don't necessarily get a chance to always like or comment on them, but I definitely am paying attention. I wanted to ask you about that. How do you, because it seems like you do a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do a lot of Facebook Lives with just you yourself broadcasting solo, correct? Hello. I love that cover. Talk about creating your environment. Look at that. Sassafras, Carolyn Maul, ladies and gentlemen. But let me ask you this. How does social media... How have you strategized that, or have you strategized that? Or is this something that, this is so much fun to do and I can leverage it for my business? What is your kind of take on social media and live video, especially? Because me, I'm all in on live video. This has been a dream come true, having a talk show on Facebook Live, meeting great. NEZNATION, never met Carolyn in person. And here I am. I'm blessed, so lucky to have somebody that I can converse with, I can talk with in the comfort of my own. This is my home, but it's a studio in my home.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing. We're connecting. This is what really the dream of social media, the profundity of these connective kind of neural networks can really provide, I think. What is your thought on it? I mean, because I see you doing a lot of it. How do you go about doing, what's your strategy? Is there a strategy, and where do you see it going? I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of research, because obviously I've been in this space, like I said, for over a decade, and I've done a lot of different things in the world of coaching, right? Everything from having a brick and mortar four walls place to being completely virtual, to doing corporate wellness coaching work where I would go to, you know, a big corporation and people would stream through my room all day. This has, like what you're saying with the amplification thing, this has the possibility, because when I sit by myself and I think, how can I help more people? Like, that's what I think about, right? Like, I'm not just like, oh, what shoes should I wear? I'm like, how can I help more people?
Yeah.
And so,
and that really comes through, by the way. I mean, I wouldn't, I honestly, I want to make the show have the utmost of integrity as possible. And I love to have fun and shits and giggles, but I definitely hear what you're saying. And I love, that's one of the main reasons I was like, she's not just doing it to do it. She's not just doing it because it's the thing. You're actually doing it because you care, which is like, I think, and it actually comes through. I want you to know that. I don't know if I've even told you that yet.
Oh, thank you. And that means a lot to me, because it wasn't always just like this for me to see myself on camera and be okay with it. You know, about, probably 3-4 years ago, when social media was really amping up the video, like you had to have videos,
right.
But they were pre-recorded. This is pre-live stream.
Yes.
And so I had such a mental block about making videos. In fact, truth be told, I still have a mental block against making videos that are going to that aren't live. Like, because the energy of having you there and like Gord commenting and all that stuff, like that
awesome.
Is super, I feed
it's awesome.
that all day.
I think you feed on that energy much like I do. You feed off of it. It actually boosts you into the kind of program.
So what was the other one that was like, it tried to launch Periscope. So
yes.
When Periscope came into the scene, which has quickly left again, but that was one of the first times where I was like, wow, like this is cool. And this is what is going to happen next. Periscope was a little bit distracting because of all the crazy parts and all of the things. And people were just like, they would see where people were from, and it was a continual feed, and people were so distracted. It was really irritating. So when Facebook Live started to happen, I was like, oh my God, this is my jam. And, and since then, you know, like, Facebook has bought Instagram, and, you know, Snapchat is the thing. And what I think is that, you know, anything that our teenagers are doing right now is what we're going to be doing in about 2 years. So they're the sort of litmus test, right? Yes. And now, like, no teenagers are on Facebook. Like, that's where their parents are. Like, it's super lame. So everyone's snapping right now. So that's, we as entrepreneurs should really take a look at that if that is really our market. But my market is more here on Facebook. It's more on LinkedIn. So my advice to
love LinkedIn
who are starting a social media presence is to just kind of pick two, because you could be on Instagram, you could be on Twitter, Pinterest, you can be on LinkedIn, you could be on Anchor and just make radio things. You can, you know, there's so many social media platforms now. It's overwhelming. So if you have a message, you need to just pick your media. Like, you love video. I love video.
I love
Not
it.
Everybody's comfortable on video. So that's when you've got your radio podcast. And like I said, the Anchor app and all that stuff. So maybe you just like writing, you know, maybe so there's so many different outlets, but if you have a message and you feel compelled to help people with it, you don't try to be everywhere all at once, especially when you're starting out. Just pick like two.
Great advice. Yeah. I think that's what happened to me. I think I was trying to be literally everywhere. I think that the only place I wasn't, I mean, I was even trying to be on Musical.ly, which Musical.ly is like, I mean, not even teenagers. It's like 13, 12-year-olds, right? I love Snapchat. I love Instagram, and I love Facebook. And I love Twitter, but now I think in the past 6 months, and I met Gord through my YouTube group, I've been going all in on YouTube. I've been really loving editing and video creation, but I can't, like what you just said, Carolyn, the energy, there is nothing like the energy of live. There's nothing like knowing. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Even when I watch people's streams and I get mentioned in their stream, it's a weird little dopamine like release. It's like, oh, he said my name. It's like, there's something about the fact that it's so interactive. It's so real time. It's so now.
Everybody who makes these, everyone who programs Facebook, they are gamers. Because it's the same, you're absolutely right. It's the same hormone stimulation, serotonin, dopamine, like reward. It's instant rewards. It's why people carry this around all the time. Ding, I got an email. Ding, I got a text. And when things go silent on their cell phones, they'll start texting people because it's the same type of ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Reward system from video.
It's like Pavlovian. It's Pavlovian. It's that sort of, it's that you hear that. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. And where do you see this being like, I've been hearing lately, like even Joel Comm, who I really love his stuff. And I don't know if you're a member of the live video mastermind group. You should be. I'll invite you to that because it's an awesome group. But even Joel posted an article because of what happened with Facebook and Gord, don't go anywhere. I've got your question. Gord's sitting there going, when's he going to answer my question? With the guy who filmed himself killing somebody, a homicide on Facebook Live. There's been I don't know, the media is just, it's so, another reason why I love YouTube is you can have your own voice, just like Facebook. And I've been watching a lot of Philly DeFranco. I don't know if you know who Philly DeFranco is. He's got this show where he's so fair, he's so objective. And it's just amazing how he points out how the media just jumps on anything that's hot, anything that's controversial. It really has become, what I love about this medium, if I can wrap this up, I know I'm rambling, is that it's the great equalizer. Everybody has a platform, everybody has a voice. If you don't like what's being thrust into the kind of sort of, ecosystem, right into the digital hemisphere, you can do something about it. You have a voice, you can talk about it, you can share your opinion. I think that's so powerful. And so there's been these latest article and the media just jumps on the bandwagon. Is Facebook Live coming to an end? It's obvious like clickbait. It's such clickbait. Should Facebook Live go away? Because this guy, I'm sure you heard about the story, right, Carolyn, about the guy who recorded a homicide on Facebook Live? Good. I'm glad you haven't. That makes me actually respect you a million times more. And it was a pretty big story. A guy like basically went Facebook Live and he committed a homicide.
That's news that doesn't affect me.
I love that. I need to stop letting it affect me.
Right? Because here you are.
I need to be one of your clients.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
No, but what you're doing, right, is you're perpetuating that story by telling it here.
Oh, totally true. I love what you just said. That's exactly right.
So I don't give extra press to bad news. Beautiful. So, okay, so let's forget that. Okay. I love the way you said that, by the way. Thank you.
Do you see live video? Do you see this medium? I know there's no way of predicting, but do you see it growing? Do you think it's plateaued? It hasn't plateaued? What are your thoughts on that?
Pretty soon.
You seem like somebody who's so intuitive and so in tune with shit, which I love. I feel like you're kind of a little bit of a guru, even though you probably hate being called that.
I don't mind, right? I study this all day long. Like this is where I live. Like this is the world, right? And so here's what I think. And I think that pretty soon Facebook feeds are just all going to be live videos.
Right.
And Snapchat and everything that is in the present moment, anything that is able to connect people instantaneously, that's where everything is going. And not only that, but like the forms of artificial intelligence, right? Our world in 10 years will look vastly different than what it does today. These things will be built into my clothes.
That's amazing. That's true.
It is
it's
true.
So true. So true.
The future of AI is the future for our teens too.
Right.
And so if we aren't teaching these things in school, programming, design, even in fashion, like I've been watching these cool podcasts about how fashion houses and are incorporating AI into their designs because it's where the world is going. Everything will be virtual one day. Like your experience will be virtual, will be plugged in. And
I think that's so true. I think that's so true, what you just said. I think virtual reality and augmented reality, I mean, Snapchat and Facebook stories and Instagram stories are already kind of going there anyway with the filters and thing. That's sort of augmented reality and Pokemon Go craze last summer. I mean, it was just insanity, right?
And we can sit here and we can judge that.
Yes.
Or we can hop on board and be like you and I.
Hello.
As a force for good.
Love it. That's exactly right. So let me ask you this, Carolyn, are you more of the philosophy or the mindset that, hey, it's not necessarily the technology, that it's the user. It's not the technology itself necessarily. It's what's behind the technology, right? I mean, yes. I mean, if we said the same thing about cars, right? If we only focused on the people who drive drunk, the people who dismiss the laws, the people who do crazy, heinous things with their vehicles, their 2-ton killing machines, right? Like, then, yeah, we should ban cars, or yeah, cars should come to an end. But no, 90% of us are just doing the best we can to be safe, peaceful.
And pretty soon, our cars are just going to drive us around.
I know. I can't wait for that. I have a daughter, Carolyn.
I
have a daughter, and it scares the crap out of me that one of these days she's going to be driving a vehicle. Hello. Oh, no, I can't wait. I am
18. He drives across we road tripped across the country 3,000 miles together, and he was in his car. I was in my car, and he's back east now. Like, my kids are very independent. They are out there in the world. And once you have teenagers and they start to drive with their
forget it.
You have to pray. You have to have faith.
How do you do? I literally, just the thought, Carolyn, it's so funny because I remember my mom saying this, wait till you have kids. The way you're talking to your mother, you're going to regret it. She was so right. Now that I'm a father, Carolyn, like, oh my God, I want to just kiss my mother's feet. I'm so sorry for putting you through hell. Like, because now I get it. Like, I'm literally, just the thought of somebody wounding my son, wounding their feelings, hurting them in any way, just literally, it's like a volcano in my chest. I can't even imagine it. I love what you said. You need to teach me how to kind of adapt to them getting older, because they're only 4 and 5. Nora's not even 4 yet. Nora's only 3. She'll be 4 in August. Sam just turned 5 in March. And boy, they're getting bigger and bigger, as I'm sure you're aware. That's the only thing they were right about. Everybody tries to give you parenting advice, but literally the only thing they were right about is that time does go fast. I mean, everything else is kind of like, you should do this, or you should do that, or you should do this. But the thing they were right about, it does go too fast. Okay, let me ask you this, because I love this question here. Gord, I hope you're still there. How important is the heart-brain connection? I am more left brain and desire to move to a more left-right brain balance. And I'm curious how the heart plays a role. Wow, what a great question, Gord. And he's already got another one. Hey, Gord, when are you going to be my Ed McMahon? Now, you practically are my Ed McMahon.
Go.
I already told him. I told him like months ago. I said, you're going to be my Ed McMahon.
Oh, hilarious.
He's a little reticent to go live, but he's a genius. He's got so many great ideas.
Yeah.
So again, the question is, how important is the heart-brain connection? I'm more left brain and desire to move more to a right brain balance. How do I do that? And how does the heart play a role? We've already been on the air, Carolyn, for 45 minutes. Are you having fun?
I know. I could do this all night long.
I love it.
This is the thing with me.
I love it.
Yeah, it's okay. So let's talk about Gord's question for a minute. So left brain, right brain. So when you say you're left brain, that means that you're more analytical. You know what I mean? Like, it means that's fine. The right
logical side of your hemisphere. Yeah.
Yep. So, and let me just say this to Gord, because I'm assuming he's a dude, right? We're talking about a guy.
He's a dude.
Listen, my friend.
You never know these days. No, I'm kidding. Gord, stop it. Gord's like Nez.
Gord could be anything.
Yes. But yes, he's a dude. No.
He's a totally kick-ass dude.
He's a kick-ass dude. Even better. I love the adjective. Hey, Jordan, thanks for joining.
So here's my thing, is that dudes are wired to be single, focused, problem-solving machines. As women, we have this very wide span of awareness, right? We hear the kids crying. We're making the grocery list. We're thinking about the argument that we got in with you the other day. What shoes are we going to wear tomorrow? And you know what I mean? Like, and meanwhile, we're cooking dinner or typing out an email. So we have all of this like it's like a sieve, right? Like we're just out there. Like you guys are like a bucket with a hole. There is one focus. There's one way to go. And so it's not so much that is a bad thing. We desperately need you. And so sometimes we don't want you to solve the problem. We just want you to listen. But we could do a whole day talk.
That's a whole other episode.
And men and women.
That's a whole nother episode. I got in a conversation with a student about that. We'll talk about that later.
That's another day. But anyhow, as far as Gord's question is, my advice is to try not to fight that so much, but to really try to use it as your gift. If you want to balance that out more, one of the best ways that I know to do that is either through meditation or through yoga. Because in yoga, what you're doing, and I've done this for over 20 years, like I've practiced for over 20 years, I've taught for over 10 as a certified yoga instructor. But what you're doing when you're moving your body and breathing at the same time is creating more neurological connections between the right and left brain hemisphere, and also between your thought patterns and your breath and your ability to be in control of your stress level, your heart rate. Basically, yoga and meditation teach you how to, at will, come down a notch. And you see how I am right now. This is how I roll all the time. Yeah. So in order for me to be a normal person in the world, I've had to learn.
I don't want you to be a normal person. I want you to be Carolyn Maul.
Oh, well, we got that taken care of. But in order for me
Who needs normal?
Well, I know, right?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But to actually appear like, somewhat approachable, I've had to be able to manage my emotions, my anxiety, my energy levels. And so those are the best two tools that I have found, straight out.
Yeah, I would definitely concur with that. I think, and the term meditation, I think, has kind of been tossed around a lot. Gord says, thanks, Carolyn. I will get more back into the meditation and yoga. Yes, absolutely, Gord. Jordan, thank you so much for the likes. Thank you. It's good to see you as well. I think my whole thing that I try to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with meditation. I love meditation, but I try to stay away from kind of calling it that. Really, what I just call it is being kind of self-aware and self-investigating. Huh?
I call it sitting.
Even better. Just sitting, just literally just being. It's like, we don't need to compare. Yeah, just sit down, take a breath, have a drink, relax. Get it in tune with that rhythm. That internal biorhythm is actually scientifically proven. The biorhythms of your heart, your nervous system, your endocrine system.
That was what Gord said, that I wanted to just say one thing.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
How does the heart factor into that?
Yeah.
And here's what's really, really interesting. So when you think about your body and all of the systems that make your body, like as somebody who studied anatomy for, a long time, your heart is really an electric pump.
Nice.
Okay, so this is true. And your heart actually creates an electrical force field around it. Now, I'm going to screw up the numbers here, but it's either 600 or 1,000 times the amount of electrical force than your brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. See, then that I didn't know. I knew that the brain is made up of trillions of neurons, and the electrical impulses are vast. But wow, I didn't know the heart was even more.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. Look at that, Nez Nation. You learn something new every single day, with every single connection. Is that true? Wow.
So I will actually post up the actual research on that and put it in this feed so that people aren't like, oh, she's full of shit.
Yeah, leave it in the comments, Carolyn, after we go, we're finished. Leave that in the comments. And by the way, Nez Nation, do not forget, I am going to leave all of the links where you can find Carolyn, where you can get a hold of her, where you can reach her, in the show notes above. Yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the show notes down there, because I do repurpose this, Carolyn, on my YouTube channel. Gord says, Petals of Life, mentioned to Carolyn. Oh, yes. Gord has an amazing book. He has an amazing book called Petals of Life, which is daily affirmations and his kind of poetry, which is synchronous with another individual's art cards, like artistic I don't want to say tarot cards. They're not tarot cards, right, Gord? It's a beautiful book. Anyway, I'll put the link to that. And Gord, you're going to connect with Carolyn anyway. You can share that with her. Please share that. I'm going to leave all her information in the notes and you'll be able to contact her. Carolyn, this has just been, I can't even tell you, this has just been a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I hope that I've gotten so much out of this. I think that this has been an amazing conversation, and there's so much more that I want to talk to you about. There's so much more so my point is, we definitely need to have Carolyn Maul back on the show very, very soon. But I wanted to kind of start to wrap up here. We're reaching the hour mark. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to kind of wrap up here, and I wanted to kind of ask you a few questions before we do. I'm kind of starting a newer sort of model. The way I close out my shows is I ask some kind of universal questions, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, so if you don't mind. So here we go. Carolyn, let me know, in your life, in your time on this earth, what has been the one thing that you feel, and it can be anything. It can be something you learned in school, something you learned as a child, something you learned as an adult, anything. What do you feel is the one thing that you've learned in your life that you want to share with our audience, that you feel is probably one of the most useful practical tools that you've implemented to make yourself have a kick-ass life?
Okay, are you ready? I've totally got
I'm ready. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm literally sweating. I can't wait.
Well, wipe your brow. Here it comes.
Here it is. You're so much fun. We got to have you on the show again. You're so much fun.
Well, that's what is a totally kick-ass life, right?
Yes.
You have to have fun. You have to be okay. And I've shoved my ego in the closet a long time ago. So that's why I can sit here with you like this. But okay, so here it is. This is the most practical, down-to-earth, do this now step to be able to make the best choices ever to create a totally kick-ass life. If you are on the fence about anything, and I mean, like, should I buy this shirt? Right? Like anything. If it's not a 9 or a 10, it's a 1.
Wow. All in or nothing.
If it's not a 9 or a 10, it's a 1.
Wow.
And this especially goes for relationships. It especially goes for any major decision that you're about to make. If it is on a fucking kick-ass 9 or 10, it's a 1.
I love it. Don't settle, in other words. Don't settle.
Settling,
don't settle for a 5 or a 6 or a 4.
No,
right.
Who wants that? You're never going to be, that's not what you want. You want a 9 or a 10. Experience, relationship, body, health, career.
Oh, I love it.
And you can have it.
I absolutely love it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I want Carolyn to kind of maybe thank you, Professor Nez and Carolyn, for a most enjoyable hour. Yes, thank you, Gord, for joining us.
Thank you, Gord.
And Carolyn's going to leave some comments too to help out with some other things and leave some links. So if I'm understanding you correctly, this whole concept of it's not a 9 or a 10, it's a 1 is all about is all about upliftment, self-upliftment, not thinking that you deserve less. Not thinking that you're not good enough, not thinking that, well, they have it, but I'm not them, right? Not comparing yourself. Am I understanding that correctly? I think that's that should be literally, Carolyn, if you haven't already, boy, I could see that being, here's the stupid branding business guy head coming in, and we're trying to talk about art and creativity. God, that would be such an amazing campaign. If it's not a 9 or a 10, it's a 1. Like, I think that's just beautiful. I love the way you said that. Very good answer. Don't settle, Nez Nation. Why settle? We don't know how long we're going to be here. Knock on wood, we might not be here tomorrow. Okay, so it's important to really decide right now. It's important to really take action today, because we don't know if we're promised tomorrow. Beautiful stuff. I have another question for you. You ready, Carolyn? Mm-hmm. Well, I love that answer. If it's not a 9, I can't get that out of my head. If it's not a 9 or a 10, it's a 1.
But
that's
think
wonderful.
about it. Like, think about it. It's applicable to anything. You're at the grocery store, you're at the mall, you're trying to decide if you want to date that person again. Yeah. Like, if they aren't a 9 or a 10 to you, it's a 1. And that doesn't mean that they're a 1. It means that it's not the right fit for you. And it's about self-awareness, because if you don't feel beautiful in the clothes that you're wearing, then you shouldn't wear them.
Right.
If you feel exceptional in the relationship that you have, you shouldn't be in it.
Beautiful.
Right? And so that's what I mean. It's nothing against other people, or that things are good or bad, right or wrong. It's just that for us, when we take a good look at what is important to us? Where are our standards? Like, how do we feel about this? That's how you decide.
Okay. I took this question from Tony Shea from Zappos. He asked his employees this.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Carolyn,
Here we go
how weird are you?
Oh, pretty weird.
I heard this recently on a podcast, and the CEO of Zappos, he asked his employees this, and the podcaster, I can't remember what it was, but he turned to Tony and said, well, how weird are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And he said, really seriously, matter of factly, he goes, I'm an 8.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that.
Were you going to say an 8?
I was going to say somewhere in the upper 8.5 range. Like, I mean, I'm not like bizarre weird, but I'm certainly not like your run of the mill person that is the wallflowery.
Thank God. Thank God for that. Yeah. Okay. And then lastly, what does your last 5 minutes of your day look like? What is the last 5 to 10 minutes? Let's say 5 to 10 minutes. It used to be longer. It used to be 15 minutes. But I wanted to ask you, what is your last, before your head hits that pillow and you go off into Never Never Land, what does the last 5 to 10 minutes of your day consist of?
Well, let's see. Probably, so if it's 5 minutes, it's probably me going through a mental checklist of, am I prepared for tomorrow? Beautiful.
Interesting. Going through a checklist. Do I have this? Do I have that? The kids. Isn't it funny how that list changes too, like as you get older, right?
Yeah, I look at my calendar for the next day, like who am I going to be talking to? What clients are on my agenda? What interviews am I doing? What classes am I teaching?
Yeah.
Am I prepared for all those things? Like right now, like I'm doing this 7-day challenge group right now. It's in a live Facebook group. So like every single day I post a new video with their 3 challenge items in it. So like before I came on here, I made sure that I had the link to the YouTube video, and I have a bunch of other links for them.
Cool.
Because I'm not going to do that like in the middle of the night.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gord just commented, weird equals unique divine expression. I love it. Gord, you are my Ed McMahon for life. You're going to be on this show. I'm going to get you on camera sooner than later.
He can be your Gord McMahon.
He's my Gord McMahon. Even better. Did you hear that, Gord? You're my Gord McMahon. Who needs Ed? Ed was useless anyway. Most of my students, my young students, if they're watching, they have no idea who the hell's Ed McMahon.
Exactly. So
they don't even know who Jay Leno is.
They can know that Gord McMahon is like anything.
The new thing. Yeah, Gord McMahon is the new craze, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I just got to say, from the bottom of my heart, Carolyn, this has been, I think, one of the most fun hours I've ever had with a guest. I can honestly say you have brought so much great value, unbelievable practical knowledge, information, and learning. And I hope, Nez Nation, you guys, if you missed anything, there was some beautiful, beautiful things that Carolyn has shared with us on the show. I really highly recommend you go back. This is one of those you're going to want to watch more than once, just to check out all the great things that were mentioned, and there were a lot. So I just want to say, Carolyn, very, very thankful. Thank you so much for being on our show. You have been a fabulous, fabulous guest, and we have so much more to talk about. And I can't wait to talk about it. And hopefully, if you're willing to, we'd love to have you on the show again anytime. Really quickly, before we sign off, do you want to maybe share some places where, and again, I'm going to leave the links, but do you want to maybe just tell our audience right now directly where they can find you or how they can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, basically, because this is a Facebook Live, you're going to be able to connect with me here. So, you know, send me a message, but also my email is just simply my name. It's Carolyn@carolynmaul.com. And I'm super responsive to that, you know, so if you send me an email, I will email you back. You can go to my website. It's just my name, carolynmaul.com. You can take a little quiz that I have up there, and I actually respond personally to every single person who takes the quiz.
Wow.
If you're going to take the time to write to me, I will reciprocate and take the time to write back to you. So you can go to my website, you can email me, you can find me here on Facebook. And then what I'm going to do actually is post the Totally Kick-Ass Life page is still like about to launch. So,
sounds exciting.
Oh man, it's going to be.
It sounds pretty kick-ass.
It's totally kick-ass. It's totally kick-ass. So as soon as that's done,
is this like a retreat, or is there something you can tease, just an exclusive for the NEZNATION audience? Is this like something like a workshop, a course, a retreat?
Honey, this is a movement.
Whoa. God, I love it. I love the way you said that. Wow. I got chills. I hope you did too, Nez Nation. That was really, really good.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Wow. Stay tuned. Look at that. Is she good, Nez Nation, or is she good? Is she fabulous or is she fabulous? That is so amazing. Carolyn, I just want to say again, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
I could talk to you till the sun comes up. You have just been a fabulous guest. Nez Nation, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, everybody, for leaving comments. And don't forget, I'm going to be leaving all of Carolyn's information in the notes. Thank you so much for watching Nez Nation Live, another episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed it, please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Make sure you share this if you found it valuable, which I don't know how you couldn't. Please make sure you share this out. We would really, really appreciate it. As always, I am your host, Professor Nez, on behalf of Carolyn Maul. We are signing off. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Nez Nation Live is out.